understanding that the line transfer for bidding managers couldn't go through, but within Webb's budget we could go through. I was wrong. So we had to change the budget, obviously take things out and move things around. Obviously, we are violating policy in that sense right now. So what it is I'm going to entertain a motion to have the Senate approve Webb's Apocalypse Week despite the lack of the 2-week timeline exception for purchases. So that's my motion.
Our advisor.
I just want to make it abundantly clear that we have been asked repeatedly by this group in front of us to hold very tight to policy. So that is why we're asking for clarification in support of violating those policies. There's been repeated times this semester where we were asked to hold really tight and follow policies and not break policies. So it is up to the Senate to decide if we are going to be allowed to do that and that we have the support of the Senate to break your own policies. I just wanted to make that abundantly clear. I yield.
Sorry, I apologize. Can you repeat your motion?
I'm entertaining a motion to approve Webb's planned Apocalypse Week despite the lack of the 2-week timeline and make an exception for purchases.
Okay, so point of order, you have motion power, not entertained, so you can make that motion. Okay. Do we have a second?
Okay.
Senator Candela, any further discussion on, do we have any discussion on this motion? Senator Sput.
What would happen if this does not get passed?
Apocalypse Week, in the sense, and all of Carnival Day would be canceled.
Do we have any further discussion? Our audience member.
So, I'm just saying this as a observer student. Personally, I would vote yes on this because I like Apocalypse Week and Carnival Week. But the big thing is, I do think it's a bit weird for SGU to be super tight to policy when it benefits them and helps them push their agenda, but then be super not tight to the policy when it does not benefit them. So basically, I find it a bit, at least as an outside observer, it looks a bit gross and weird and bad to follow policy when it's convenient and to not follow policy when it's not convenient. So like following the CFB policy and not doing any extra funding because that helps push people to want to get voted in sooner, but now not voting policy because you all want to go to Carnival Day, if that makes sense. I yield.
Webb.
I just also like to comment. The audience, the point. It's also, you guys did approve this money from the reserves pool too. I just don't want it to see it go to waste. You took time to approve this. I understand that it's a crazy timeline right now. I'm not happy about this either. I wish I didn't end up being like this, but I really do ask for your support on this. I yield to the treasurer.
And just to add on to that a little more, the reserves pool as originally approved, right, which is the same reserves pool that we approved 2 weeks ago, I believe, was approved back in February, right? The planning for this has been going on for months, right? A lot of things have happened and gotten in the way. I don't think any particular party is to blame, but I think Webb is doing the best that they can in this regard, and they're really looking to have, Apocalypse Week be a fun week for students. If the motion does not pass, right, if the Senate doesn't approve of this, the money pulled from reserves would likely just go back into reserves, but it does mean that the other $32,000 or so that was allocated for Apocalypse Week this year would also go into reserves. And that was money that was approved in the budget that was passed last fall for this whole academic year. That's, $32,000 is a lot of student activity fees, and that's money that students are paying because they're expecting events here on campus. They're expecting Apocalypse Week to be happening. I'm going to yield to our advisor.
No, I apologize. I take it.
Can I entertain a motion to extend open forum by 5 minutes? So moved by Senator Wu. Do we have a second? Senator Candela. Do we have any further discussion on extending open forum by 5 minutes? Senator Sput.
Could I make a motion just to extend it to until the vote's passed? Because we would be stuck in open forum until the 5 minutes is up, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, so we have an amendment, or a first. Do we have a second? We have a second by Senator Wu. Do we have any further discussion on amending the initial motion? Our secretary.
Where were they in the motion for the Webb, what was said? Aren't we in a motion right now? So you can't have a motion to extend open forum, right?
Okay, I apologize. I rescind my so moved. Sorry, moving back in discussion on the motion to move forward with purchase of web for Apocalypse Week. Do we have any further discussion? Seeing none, we move into voting. All those in favor of moving forward with Apocalypse Week spending, please raise your hand. All those who oppose, and all those who abstain. That motion passes. Seeing as our 5-minute period has ended, we'll move back into our regularly scheduled agenda. For announcements, can I yield the floor to our Chief Justice to announce the election?
Yes, I have 2 announcements for the election. First, can you guys hear me? Lovely. The Election Committee has concluded its recent review of concerns regarding the integrity of the 2025 student government executive election. After conducting interviews, reviewing relevant video materials, and evaluating statements submitted by involved parties, the committee has determined that violations of the SGU Constitution and policies and procedures occurred which constituted interference in the election process. In accordance with these documents and our obligation to uphold a fair and equitable democratic process, the committee has taken appropriate action, which included the disqualification of certain candidates. These decisions were made following a thorough and impartial review process. To respect the privacy of students involved and to comply with institutional policies and federal regulations such as, but not limited to, FERPA, specific details of the evidence and findings will have to remain confidential. However, the committee affirms that all decisions were made based on substantial documentation and in consultation with members of the student affairs team and appropriate SUNY Poly administrators, and in accordance with the governing documents of the student government at Utica. We sought the first available opportunity to speak about this with the student body and have chosen the SGU meeting to do so. Members of the Senate or student body who have any questions may submit them in writing, and the election committee will respond as we are able. We remain committed to transparency, fairness, and the integrity of student leadership at SUNY Polytechnic Institute. Furthermore, in announcing the election results are as follows. The student activities fee passed with 83% approval. Our president will be Noah Itokiana Loda Harrow. Our vice president will be Forrest Chaput. Our secretary will be Christopher Mavros. Our chief justice will be Summer Wu. College council representative Saba Haji. Congratulations to all of our elected candidates. You will be sworn in at the conclusion of this meeting. I yield. We are sworn in after the 2-week period. Thank you.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, we move into guest speakers. Do we have any guest speakers? Seeing none, we will enter executive reports. I have no report. Our vice president has not submitted a report. Our treasurer.
Hi all. The end of the semester is rapidly approaching. You'll be seeing an email later today with regards to stipend forms for filling out direct deposit forms if you elect to do direct deposit for receiving your stipend. Stipends will be distributed in the last week of the semester, so that's a few weeks away. I also want to add that most of the people in this horseshoe, bar our senators, are required to fill out transition documents for their positions. It's very important that you do so. These transition documents help inform whoever's coming after you how the position works, things to be aware of, all sorts of things. They're outlined within our policies and procedures if anyone's curious. To the Senate, senators are not individually required to fill out transition documents. If there's anything you'd like to share, definitely put it down, right? It's very helpful to have. The one exception is if you are a committee chair, your committee will be required to fill out a transition document for next year's committee. If anyone has any questions on that, feel free to ask me later or during open forum. I yield.
Moving on to our secretary, do we have a report? Moving on to our chief of staff. No report. Moving on to our chief justice. No report. Moving into director reports. Director of PR, Pearl.
Hey everyone, as you can see, your new name tags are created.
We do not have a director of community outreach. We do not have a director of wellness and inclusion. We do not have a director of development. Moving on to our college council. Moving on to our Res Life rep. Moving on to, SAC is not here. Moving on to our advisors. Do our advisors have a report today?
The only thing we have is today is the last day to pick up a ticket for the Student Recognition Banquet, which is next Friday. We're really excited. It is open to all students, so if anyone has a student that's interested, today's the last day to pick it up. We'll be here until about 4:30 today. You can pick it up upstairs with Lauren in the SGU office, or you can pick it up from our office in the Center for Student Involvement. Thank you.
Does our other advisor have a report? No report? Okay. Moving into committee reports. Budgets?
Hi everyone. Budget is on the table. Hoping to get it passed today, cautiously optimistic. If not, we'll just deal with it next week. I do want all of y'all to know that we'll be reviewing the likely final draft of amendments to financial policy and hopefully putting it on the table next week if all goes according to plan. Tomorrow, SGU conference room, 2 to 4 p.m. Please show up. It's very important. We'd love to have you there. I yield.
Moving on to class gift. Is anyone from the committee able to give a report? Senator Fisher.
All I have to say is, from the chair, is that we have made a resolution and it is currently on the table, so hopefully it passes soon, so we can hopefully get the class gift by, sorry, I'm blanking, graduation. I yield.
We have election committee listed under reports. Is anyone from election committee interested in giving a report?
We already gave our report.
Okay, noted. Moving on to food committee.
Hi everyone. We only have 2 or 3 minutes left. 2 or 3 meetings left. Please show up if you're interested in talking about food committee. It's 11 a.m., second floor, campus center lobby. Thank you, and I yield.
Policy committee. Can anyone from policy committee give a report? Seeing none, we'll move on to safety and facilities. Can anyone from safety and facilities provide a report? Seeing none, we move on to student center advisory committee.
Good afternoon, everyone. We had a very quick 30-minute meeting last week, April 10th, 2025. In the meeting, we discussed about possible adding some more arcade machines to the game room, or maybe we were also looking at maybe getting a custom Walter pinball machine. But we're having some scheduling issues on when to get a Zoom call with the people and a certain people that we want in the meeting. So that is currently in the works. Hopefully I can have the meeting with the company and see how much they want it to go for, hopefully by next week. Thank you. We will be having another meeting today in the SGU conference room from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Please come. We are looking for looking for a lot of involvement, and we need more ideas for the student center. Hope to see you all there. These meetings are open to the public. I yield.
Moving on to student success and technology.
Library computers. We've confirmed that the computers will be moved to the Learning Center, and there will be printers available for students still. and to also keep an eye on your emails for an upcoming survey. We are eager to hear your feedback and ideas to help enhance your educational experience. I yield.
Moving on to wellness and inclusion. Seeing none, we'll move on to organization reports. Web.
Hi everyone. So let's get into this. I just want to say thank you so much for just passing that. It means the world to Web as well as the students that now get to participate in this. So today's the last day of Where's Walter's Week. I don't believe anybody has found Walter yet. No? Okay. Slight hint, since we've had concerns, Walter is upstairs in the library somewhere. Go have fun. Apparently people were reading too much into the clue, so that's our bad on our end. And then since that was passed against once again, Apocalypse Week is almost here. We are 3 days out. Monday starts Drag Bingo. Tuesday is our Magician. Wednesday is Casino Night. Thursday is Late Night at Poly. And Saturday is Carnival Day. Thank you so much. I yield.
CFB.
The CFB is continuing to review and ensure all clubs are compliant with requirements outlined in policy as we are stringent on policy. We have submitted a resolution in 2425-38 to fees clubs that have failed to submit meeting minutes. All our standing funding requests are over. We have distributed a grand total of $38,160. For the first time in over 10 years, the funding board has stayed within budget. And do orgs not get name tags now? This is a sad comment. And we have received concerns about a certain committee on campus, but that's not pertaining to us. I yield back to the jail.
Wildcat Media.
So our Name That event tune is tomorrow in this room at 7 p.m. Please show up. They will be prizes. It'll be fun. The Factory Times, we've printed out a test issue. It looks really good. It'll be sent to the print shop tomorrow. So depending on how fast the print shop wants to work, we'll hopefully see it before the semester ends. I yield.
Moving on to Wildcat Esports. Moving into old business, Resolution 2425-36, Senator Candela.
Resolution number 35, 2425-36. This resolution, we, the Senate of SUNY Poly, government at Utica, do hereby resolve that this resolution aims to create a budget for the student government at Utica and its subsidiary organizations. We, the Senate of SUNY Poly, hereby resolve. Whereas Budget Committee has created a new budget for the 25-26 fiscal year, therefore be it enacted, the SGU Senate supports and endorses the attached budget to be put in place for the next fiscal year of 2025-2026. Therefore be it resolved that this budget will allow SGU and its subsidiaries to carry out its mission statement and cater to the students of SUNY Poly and attachments.
All right, moving into discussion on the resolution. CFB.
I motion to return stipends to the table. The motion to bring stipends back to the table, or can I just motion the stipends? Yep.
You can just, you can just motion to amend specific amounts. Now that it's all on the table, it can all be amended. The only reason we did a separate resolution for stipends originally was so we could come to a general consensus ahead of time. But if we do want to revisit those amounts, we absolutely can. I'm going to yield back to our CFB representative.
The solution to this budget squeeze is not to cut funds from the orgs that have direct involvement with students, but rather the stipends, as we're in a budget squeeze, so why pay yourselves more? So I motion to remove the $1,200 in total wages from the SGU stipend line, plus a total of 10% cut from all SGU stipends, and return that to the orgs, whether that be Web and CFB, as we have a direct involvement with the students to get the money directly to the students instead of to you guys.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Candela. Moving into discussion. Our treasurer.
Just a point of clarification. For the $12,000 in stipends from the SGU line, which lines would you be taking from, or would you just be doing a flat percentile reduction across the board so it gets that down to, it yields back to our CFP representative?
So I just calculated the total increase is being done to be $1,200 as we were subtracting 150 from two lines. So that total increase would be included, plus a 10% cut from the basis stipend, total across the board. Yep. So President, Vice President, Treasurer, Secretary, Senators, Assistant Treasurer, Director of Public Relations, Director of Development, Community Outreach, Diversity and Inclusion, President Pro Tem, Deputy Director of PR, Chief of Staff, Chief Justice.
Senator Chaput.
Said they were going to be moved into the organization lines. Do you know specifically what that's going to be going into and how that money is going to divide out? Because that is a good amount of money to divide out.
They're always divided up between EFRs and Carnival Day, divided between the two of them. Carnival Days always needed money, and so club extra funding requests.
Senator Chaput.
Let me rephrase that a little bit to more direct it. I'd like to ask each of the organization heads where they would feel that money would best go within their organizations, starting with CFB.
Best fit for that money in our organization would be the extra funding line. It has been cut, despite the fact clubs can now request upwards of $7,500 at a Wildcat level and $5,000 at Ocelot. So Puma, I believe, right? Which is over the second tier can request 5,000, third tier 25, last tier 1,000 now. So I believe it's best if we were to be able to give more money out to the clubs now that they can request more, they're going to request more now. It's just a matter of if we had it under budget this year because they could only request a maximum of 5, but due being higher, they're going to request higher now.
So, as a quick point of information, were you saying 12,000 or 1,200?
1,200.
1,200.
So the
okay.
total increase would be 1,200.
Okay.
Well, plus 10% on top of that 1,200. So I believe my average was, I did the rough math, around $1,500 plus a 1,200 total cut.
Senator Chaput.
More point to that. How much were you looking out of that around $15,000 for specifically your own organization?
Not $15,000.
$1,500, my bad.
1,500 plus a 1,200 cut. So we would ask for around 1,000.
For CFB specifically?
Yeah, for extra funding requests.
Wildcat Media.
I do not think this is necessary because if it was, it would have been brought up when we had the stipends on the table. I believe that in budget committee when the orgs presented their budget to the budget committee and we all decided on numbers, that, I mean, I personally don't see a reason for this. I believe that when we created the new stipends, we looked over everyone's contract and calculated who gets a raise and who's not. Stipends have not been raised in SGU for so many years, and people deserve to get paid for what is contractually obligated by them. I yield.
Our treasurer.
Just to build off of that as chair of Budget Committee did quite a bit of work when we revisited these stipends. As our media representative said, some of these stipends had not been changed in years. Others just simply did not match the contracts. It wasn't an overall across-the-board increase. You'll see that some positions had their stipends decreased, some had their stipends increased, some positions stayed the same, right? We really took a very fine-toothed comb to every single position and their stipend and figured out from scratch which amount would work the best. It is an increase overall, but it's also just due to the fact that stipends were not really touched in quite a long time. This year, 23-24, we did increase some stipends because of that. When we were originally making our budget, they were still far less than what passed in spring 2024. Overall, just to say, stipends are, I strongly believe, appropriate where they are. Obviously, our student leaders deserve to be compensated, right? We do have a limited amount of funds to give out, which is why, especially for the amount of hours that you put in, it's not a fair wage, right? It's not meant to be a salary. It's not something that anybody should be trying to live off of. It's meant as a way of demonstrating gratitude and also providing a little something to give back to the student leaders who put so much effort into student government, making it the best place it can be. I yield.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll move into voting on the motion to move $1,200 worth of stipends. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those who oppose? And all those who abstain? That fails. 062. Back into discussion of the budget. CFB.
This time I read my prepared statement. I believe that the cuts to the DEI programming and line are premature. We are in these seats as student leaders to lead a student body. I can't stand by as we just willingly cut DEI funding for no good reason. So I motion to move the $2,000 increase from events back to DEI programming.
We have a motion to move DEI fund.
This DEI programming line that you're talking about that's getting cut, is this the one listed within SGU?
Yes.
Do you see the subtext underneath that describing where it's being
Yes,
transferred
but
to?
there's no oversight to what these events are. They'll just be random events. So we need to keep that money for that specific type of events.
All right, we have a motion to transfer $2,000 from the SGU events line to the SGU DEI programming line. Do we have a second? Seeing none, that motion dies. Oh, Senator Fisher, do we have a second? All right, we have a second. Moving into discussion on that motion. Any discussion on that motion? Senator Wu.
From what I remember in Budget Committee, we talked about DEI programming and moving it into the events fund. And the events fund funds small events like coffee house, or it also can provide, I forgot exactly what it funds, but I think, didn't we also use it for the banquet that we're putting on too? No, not at all? Okay, I yield to the treasurer.
Just to very briefly answer that, we can also use it for sponsoring finals week when we do, coffee and cookies at the library for students who are studying for finals and everything like that. That's also something that we can fund. We can also use it to more broadly fund other events happening around campus if you want to fund club events, that sort of thing. I'm just going to yield back to Senator Wu if she has anything else to add. No, I yield to the chair.
All right, Senator Fisher.
It was my thought that the New York was still. Am I correct to state that? So I don't know if we should be DEI programming money, seeing how New York is still a DEI supporting state. I yield.
Wildcat Media. CFB.
This is actually sort of my point. Instead of using this funding to promote diversity and inclusion on campus, they're going to do food events, coffee in their office up there, and just ignore the entire topic as a whole. So I believe that's why we need to support this motion. Vote yes on the motion. I yield back.
Our treasurer.
I'm going to yield to our audience member because I think she's been there for a bit.
I think we should all also be thinking about the fact, well, I know a lot of us don't want to think about politics, but we should 100% anything involving DEI. We should think about the current state of political affairs within the United States and also personal bias against DEI or for DEI, whatever. But I think the reason why the DEI programming line is there is because the money is supposed to be not used for general events. Yes, the general event money can be used to do a DEI event, but because it was put there so that student government would do DEI events. It would do events based on, cultures for international students. Maybe like Black History Month, Women's History Month, stuff like that. And instead, what you do by cutting it is you're just kind of ignoring that stuff. Coffee house, nice. Who goes to that? SGU senators. I've never seen a non-SGU senator at coffee house. Instead, you're putting the money that could be used for helping out our minorities on campus for your own benefit. Especially given the fact that it's only $2,000. It should not be being cut just because it can be used in general events. It's not supposed to be used in general events. It's why the line exists in the first place. So that way student equality can be an inclusive space. It's so student government can be an inclusive space. That is why it's there.
Our audience member.
Hi, I'm Natalie. Personally, I have used Coffee House. I think it's really nice as a commuter because it's one last time I have to pay for Utica coffee, because honestly, walking to the CC for me is really out of my way. So actually, it was Senator Summer told me about it, and I walked up with her, and it was really nice. I did get to have my breakfast kind of for free that day, and I do appreciate these events, so I would be sad to see them go. Though I do see the point of bringing in DEI events. I know personally, I'm events coordinator for Web. We had our event that night. Multicultural night was really nice. Seeing more small ones around like that was a lot of fun, and I don't mind hearing about seeing other events like that, but I don't think we should go away with coffee house or food events, because I definitely do appreciate and show up to those a lot. Thank you.
Our treasurer.
To clarify the rationale behind it a little bit, the shift was designed to provide more flexibility. We should be embracing DEIB in all programming that we do, especially as a student government that serves all students, right? The events should incorporate that in some fashion. To respond to our CFB representative's comment with regard to food events, the last invoice paid through DEI programming was a catering invoice. It was food for the multicultural dinner. Now that's different from a coffee house, but the general idea behind the coffee houses is to provide a spot where all students can come, they can chat with their student government representatives, they can hang out, enjoy a free cup of coffee, enjoy a free pastry, that sort of thing. By merging it into one general events line, it provides for more flexibility. This does not mean that we are planning on doing less DEI programming. It just means we are able to be a little more flexible with regards to the programming that we do. If we want to fund something, but it doesn't feel strictly DEIB, we're still able to do that and help create a diverse, inclusive space for students. I'm going to yield to our audience member.
Hi. Respectfully, I just don't think that you would do that. You know what I mean? I understand that you might love coffee house. I like going to coffee house too. I love coffee house, but I have to agree that everyone there is SGU members. You're still an SGU member whether you're a part of the Senate or not. And Summer, I've seen Max there, so you can give me the weird look, but Summer's the only one who promotes it to people outside of SGU that I've heard of. Now, the reason for separate DEI event funding is so that you're enabled to do the DEI events on campus. I went to Multicultural Affair Night. It was nice, but I respectfully did not feel represented of multiple cultures. It felt like it went from an event that MSA, MSU would run, and then it felt like a web event that people didn't come to, respectfully. On campus, we're supposed to be inclusive. I feel like the thing is that we keep going to this politicization of the word and the acronym DEI, when in reality it's about inclusion. I know that you said that keeping it a broad event category, now all events can be DEI, but you've historically not done that. You know what I mean? So I would love to believe that, but I've been here 3 years and it's just not true. So I know I don't have very much power here, but senators, please don't just vote away DEI funding to be general funding, because I guarantee we are not going to see as much DEI events. I yield.
Unless this discussion is going elsewhere, I'm going to ask that we move to voting. Our audience member.
So that's another thing to be similar about as one of our diverse students, because I'm both international, I am mixed race, and I come from a culture that's not represented here. In fact, the one event about my culture was cut this semester. While the event was not perfect in the past, it did at least make me feel a bit represented on campus, and I was not alone, and helped my own personal homesickness, especially considering the fact that my home is on the other side of the Pacific Ocean. Having DI events, having stuff like this that's about cultures, or at least specific cultures and stuff like that, it helps you feel represented, makes you feel like you belong. But when every event is just something that does nothing to do with that, you can have a general coffee house and it's promote DI, but it's not the same thing as having an event that's for specific cultures or anything that makes sense. And along with this, SGU in the past has also been really bad about DI stuff. Last year, we had the board thing during Apocalypse Week where you could put your identity. Not only was my culture and my religion not included, even after I brought it up to Bailey, who was president of Web that year. I brought up, my culture is not on there, my religion is not on there. Could you put it up there? And he said, oh yeah, sure, we'll put it up there later. It was never put up. And so instead, I had to put down like that strings to connect things with stuff that did not include any of my cultural identity or any of my religious identity. And having this funding will won't prevent things like this, but at least make it better. That's also why we have the DEI director and the DEI committee, is to prevent stuff like that and to make students like me, other students here, might not even be international, it might just be part of a culture that's small in the U.S. or very attached to the like home country culture. It makes us feel more represented.
Senator Sput.
Just to slightly move out of this sort of discussion, you said $2,000, correct? Yes. And the original line only had $1,500 in it. Where's the extra $500 coming from? So it's taking out of the events line?
I mean, the events line stayed the same as last year, but the total increase of the events line was $2,000. I said that money was moved, so I'm going to move it back and give it an increase of $500. So it'll be $2,000 at the end. If this resolution passes, it'll be $2,000 for DEI programming. And events programming remains at $1,000.
All right, any further discussion on the motion at hand? Seeing none, we move into voting. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those who oppose, and all those who abstain. That passes 6-0. Moving back in discussion of the budget. Any further discussion on the budget? Our treasurer.
Can I entertain a motion to add under Webb's budget a rent expense line? I can provide the actual line. It would be its own section essentially, titled rent expense, and set the amount to 1608. That's $1,600. Yeah, that's all.
Can I please request a revote of the last motion?
Can I ask our advisors, can I do that? Okay, we have a motion to revote.
I made a mistake. I meant to vote a different way, and I just got confused.
Okay. So let's just do a revote then. We have a motion to revote on the last motion that was voted on.
Point of information, motion, please. Can you list what the motion is, please?
The motion was to move $2,000 from the SGU events to the DEI wellness line.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor of that previous motion that we did, please raise your hand. All those who oppose, and all those who abstain. That passes 8-0-0. In the minutes, that should be reflected as $2,000 from SGU events to DI Wellness as 8-0-0. Moving back in discussion of the motion, or the so moved, no, the entertained. We didn't have a second yet, or so moved. Can you please state your original motion again, Senator Weddle?
Absolutely. To add under Webb a rent expense line with the value 1608.
We have a so moved by Senator Chaput. Do we have a second? We have a second by Senator Candela. Do we have any discussion on that? Senator Fisher.
Sure.
Yeah, very valid question. So currently, as I'm guessing everyone in here is aware, the campus center is undergoing renovations. Webb used to store a lot of its bigger materials, especially materials for casino night, right? Those poker tables, blackjack tables, whichever, in the campus center in the defunct swimming pool area. When the campus center renovations began, the previous director of CSI began renting a storage container under Webb to basically store that. We are still paying for that storage container. It's $134 a month. It sits in the Oriskany parking lot. At the moment, it doesn't look like we'll be buying a more permanent storage solution within the end of this fiscal year, so I'm just looking to look out ahead and ensure that there's funding available for it. For context, this is something that the Director of Auxiliary Services, who is our fiscal and accounting agent, brought up to me last Thursday after the Senate meeting when he realized it wasn't in there, and he asked me to make this motion. I yield.
Do we have any further discussion? Senator Sput.
Where is this coming from, both the money and like where is it under the section? What is this going to be put under?
Senator, oh my gosh, Treasurer Weddle, I've done that twice now.
I can be a senator.
No.
With regards to where the money is coming from, I would yield to our web representative, but before I do so, my understanding is it would fall under, it would be its own section essentially, in the same way that, meals for performers is its own section, travel conference expenses its own section, free with ID is its own section. It would be an additional section. I don't have the line number offhand, but I can certainly get that for you. I yield to web.
I said to Treasurer Weddle that I'd be taking the money out of winter sports, since looking at the money from this year, the last 2 weeks, we spent $41 and then $250. So we're just going to cut 2 weeks out of winter sports since the weather got nice. Obviously, things may change, but right now we're just going to go with that so we can pay for that storage unit because we'd like to keep our casino night tables. I yield to the floor.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion at hand? Seeing none, we will move into voting. All those in favor of adding a new line to web, please raise your hand. All those who oppose, and all those who abstain. That passes 8-0-0. Moving back in discussion of the budget. Do we have any further discussion on the budget? Seeing none, we will move into voting on the budget. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those who oppose, and all those who abstain. That passes 8-0-0. Moving on to Bill 2425-11, Senator Chaput.
Student government at Utica of SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do hereby enact as follows for Bill number 2425-11. The purpose of this bill is to remove some typos, grammatical errors, and duplicate sections of the SGU policies and procedures.
All right. Do we have any further discussion on Bill 2425-11? Senator Chaput.
I just want to announce, since we have a large audience here, this bill is not actually taking anything out of the Constitution and policies and all of that jazz. This is simply just removing duplicate sections, taking out the words student government at Utica and replacing with SGU, and then putting a footer at the beginning of the very first page saying that all mentions of SGU will be standing for those said words. And this is just to clean up some paper space and remove any small typos that can normally get fixed under House rules, but just wanted to point them out and to clean up sections, because sections, while they may be duplicates, any removal from the policies and procedures does need to be voted on. I yield.
All right, moving back into discussion. Our treasurer.
Just to clarify, I know we discussed this briefly last week, and I'm afraid someone will just have to refresh my memory. Are we looking, for consistency's sake, to have it read the SGU or just SGU in situations? I'm going to yield to Senator Chaput.
So I was going to actually bring this up next. I would like to make a motion to have it have the word "the" be put in front of all SGU instances.
Our treasurer. Oh, sorry. We need a second. Seconded by Senator Fisher. Moving into discussion. Our treasurer.
Do you believe that having the SGU as opposed to just SGU makes sense, given it's an acronym? I'm going to yield back to Senator Chaput.
So I believe in the majority of the instances that are in here, and I do want to note that there are a couple instances where this would not take place, and I would be happy to work with the secretary, since I was, the policy committee was the one who presented this bill, on this instances where this would or would not go in. But the majority of these times, there is "the" in the words, and the other majority of the time, when it just says student government at Utica, there should be a the in front of it, such as in the instance of 8.5.0, where it says new requirements in a student of government Senate meeting. This would be switched into in the student government at Utica Senate meeting, or the SGU Senate meeting. So I do believe that "the" would, in the majority of instances, be more properly suited to have "the" in front of it. I yield.
Our treasurer.
Just to clarify, would you still be removing "the" from some situations where it's referring to just SGU, the entity, or are you looking to have that be? I'm just going to yield to that.
Yeah, so all of the instances in here that have the word "the" in front of it currently, would need to be looked at, of course, and I can't give you every instance of where this should be or shouldn't be, but I do believe that that should be looked at, of course, and I do believe that in the majority of the instances, the word "the" should be put in front. This, obviously, it's a lot of instances, so it would need to be reviewed. However, I do feel that the word "the" should be put in front, yes.
Our Treasurer.
I'm just going to yield to our Chief Justice. Is it appropriate for such a motion that allows for almost a little more conditional looking at each situation, given that I don't think we're looking to read through every single situation where SGU appears right now?
I for sure say so. I yield that.
Yield to the chair.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion? Senator Velez. The motion was to add "the" to
In front of
Yeah.
the majority of the SGU.
a majority of instances of SGU within the policies.
Can I motion to table it back to the author while we're in this motion, but after, if we cannot pass this motion?
Well, so we are currently in a motion. Yeah. All right, moving back in discussion of the motion. All right, seeing, our advisors.
I just had a question. If we're going based off of the motion where it's like conditional as to who is looking at it, reviewing it, should we clarify in the legislation who can review it, who would make that change following the passage of this legislation? I'm going to yield to Senator Shepard.
So I did say in the original motion that it'd be reviewed by the secretary.
All right, any, our treasurer.
Could I entertain an amendment to that motion to just clarify that the situations in which "the" should be inserted is when SGU is being used as an adjective, essentially, to refer to some larger noun, and in instances where SGU is being used on its own as just the sole entity, remove the entirely.
We have a so moved by Senator Sputz. We have a second. Senator Candela. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we move into voting on the amendment to the motion. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That passes unanimously. Moving back in discussion of the original motion to add "the" to a majority of the instances of SGU within the policies. Do we have any more discussion? Seeing none, we move into voting. All those in favor of adding "the" before SGU in the policies, please raise your hand. All those who oppose? And all those who abstain? I'm going to ask for a revote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those who oppose? And all those who abstain? That passes 8-0-0. Moving back in discussion of the bill at hand. Is there any further discussion of the bill? Seeing none, we move into voting. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those who oppose, and all those who abstain. That passes 8-0-0. Moving on to Bill 2425-10, Senator Wu.
We, the members of the student government at Utica of SUNY Poly, as represented in the Senate, do hereby enact as follows. Bill number 2425-10. The purpose of this bill is to remove Article 26 from the policies and procedures and alter Article 6 and Article 11. The end goal is to minimize policy redundancy and properly address the needs of SGU members.
Any discussion on the bill at hand? Senator Fisher.
Isn't my memory correct that we were in a motion to change something about this the last meeting? Or was that the previous bill?
Our secretary.
Do I need to yield the table back while this gets looked at, or no? I yield.
Yeah. Sorry, I apologize. I kind of stole it. Okay, can I ask our secretary, what was the motion that we were in the middle of? Senator Fisher.
What? What was the exact motion? Oh, okay. I stated that last meeting we ended on this bill, and we were in a motion. So I was wondering what that motion was. And it was to change line 1, the procedure line? 11.6, okay. Which I am going to the minutes right now to look. Give me a sec. It states right here, it was entertained to amend these minutes, to add these meetings, the college council is not required to be on to entertain. Change the first sentence 11.6.0 to say all student government Utica executives, cabinet members, and representatives from each organization must be present at every meeting unless a valid excuse has been submitted to the secretary. The motion we were in was to amend that, to add to that. Yeah, add to these meetings, the college council is not required to be there.
So just as a quick point of information, as I made this motion last week, or I entertained the motion last week, at least a portion of it, it did also include senators in there as well, which you didn't mention. Senators are also included in there. Our treasurer.
Given just the general confusion, in my opinion, I think it might be best to vote down the amendment to the original motion, and then simply remove. Can I entertain a motion to call to question?
Senator Fisher. Do we have a second?
This is a call to question. Being for what?
This is a call to question on the amendment to the original motion. The amendment was, quote, to add these meetings, the college council is not required to be there. I'm looking to call the question on the amendment, call the question on the original motion, vote both of them down, and then simply remove if we're looking to do that, because I think it's not quite clear to me, at least, with regards to, from a record-keeping point of view. I think it might be easier if we just restart with what's currently in the agenda. I yield.
Do we have a second? Senator Cortez. Do we have any discussion on the... No, there's no discussion call to question. We move into voting on the call to question. All those in favor of the call to question, please raise your hand. All those who oppose, and all those who abstain. That passes. We'll now move on to voting to the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. All those who oppose, and all those who abstain. That dies 0-5-3. Now we move on to discussion of the original motion from last week. All those in favor, please raise your hand. No, we did the, apology. Yeah, we're in discussion of the motion that was originally from last week. We voted on the call to question, then we voted on the amendment. So now we're back in discussion of the original motion. Senator Fisher. We have a motion to call the question. Do we have a second? Senator Candela. Do we have, no discussion. All those in favor of the call to question, please raise your hand.
I'm sorry, can I just point of clarification? What is the motion that we're voting on? Does it include senators or no?
It does include senators. What it added was cabinet to that first sentence following SGU executives. All right, so we have a call to question. All those in favor of the call to question, please raise your hand. Did we?
This motion does not include, at least according to the minutes, does not include senators.
Does not.
Does not.
Interesting. All those in favor of the original motion that added cabinet and removed senators, please raise your hand. All those who oppose?
Point of order, sorry. We never voted on the call to question.
Did we not? Okay,
No,
I
we didn't.
apologize. All those in favor of the call to question, because we had a first and a second, correct? Okay. All those in favor of the call to question, please raise your hand. All those who oppose, and all those who abstain. That passes 7-0-1. Moving into the voting for the motion. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those who oppose, and all those who abstain. That dies 0-5-3. Moving back into the bill as a whole. Any discussion on the bill? Senator Sput.
I entertain a motion to change the first sentence of 11.6.0 to say, all student government Utica executives, cabinet members, senators, and representatives from each organization must be present at every meeting unless a valid excuse has been submitted to the secretary, and that the college council is not required to be there.
We have a motion to modify 11.6.0. Do we have a second? Senator Fisher. Do we have any discussion? Senator Velez. I'm going to yield to Senator Sput to repeat that.
All right. The motion is to change the first sentence of 11.6 to 0 to say, all student government Utica executives, cabinet members, senators, and a representative from each organization must be present at every meeting unless a valid excuse has been submitted to the secretary, the college, and then like a semicolon, the college council is not required to be there.
Do we have any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll move into voting. All those in favor of the motion to modify 11.6.0, please raise your hand. All those who oppose and all those who abstain. That passes 8-0-0. Moving back in discussion of the bill at hand. Is there any further discussion? Our advisor.
I can't help but notice in 6.4.0 and then again in 11.6.0, they seem a little bit contradictory or confusing, I should say. There's overlap for sure, and they're different directives. So it's saying in 6.4.0 that if an SGU member has an outstanding requirement that interferes, they are to inform their immediate supervisor or the SGU advisor. Great. In 11.6 it says all of those people have to be present at every meeting, but then an excuse has to be sent to the secretary. So I just think for consistency, or maybe I'm missing something, and that's totally fine. It just feels like being at the meeting is part of their contractual obligations. So it just seems maybe like a little bit redundant and a little contradictory, unless I'm missing something, which I may be. So I will yield to Senator Chaput.
Yeah, so Election 11, or Article 11 within the Policies and Procedures is specifically talking about the Senate business meetings. However, the Section 6 is specifically talking about contracts. The reason that we decided to set it up this way, and just give me a quick second while I'm pulling up that section, is that we wanted it so that it can include things such as committee meetings and stuff like that. However, the Senate meeting specifically, the chair of the meeting is who you'd need to tell that you are not able to come. You'd submit it to the secretary, and the secretary would tell. So there's already a chain of, information that is already set there. The contract one, however, is making it more broad so that, say you can't come to a committee meeting, that's what that's covering.
Our advisor.
So just to follow up to that, with the conversation that we originally had about topics that might be private or confidential or whatever the case may be, I still think that we should consider having an alternate or maybe a little bit broader reporting structure that would someone would be responsible to tell the secretary in a very timely manner. But if they weren't comfortable telling their reason to the secretary or the chair, I think we still need to give an out for that so that there's a level of comfortability and respected privacy. I yield.
Senator Sput.
So this would be falling under, and I realize that this is the overlap that you're talking about, but this would be falling under the new 6.4.0 and its subsequent subsections that you can talk to the SGU advisor. Obviously, the SGU advisor sort of acts as, I wouldn't say overhead, but they do act as their own nebulous thing above the secretary and above the chair of the meetings. So if it is something so personal that they, A, need to both reveal the details about it to someone, but B, can't reveal the details about that to the secretary, then I feel like that's, first of all, a special instance to where, because just from personal experience, if you give even just a vague instance, most of the time it is okay. But if it has to be something that you need to specify that you won't be able to make a large amount of time, say as a medical emergency or something, that is very personal, then you can still go to the SGU advisor, and that is why we put that in contracts, so that way it can almost act as, a overarching thing instead of the very specific Senate meeting policies.
Do we have any further discussion on the bill at hand? Seeing none, we'll move into voting. All those in favor of Bill 2425-10, please raise your hand. All those who oppose, and all those who abstain. That passes 8-0-0. Moving into new business, Resolution 2425-38, Senator Fisher.
Accept Senate Resolution number 2425-38.
This is we need a second. Do we have a second? Senator Wu. That was removed. We have a second. Do we have a discussion on the bill? Oh, sorry. You may continue reading. I'm so sorry.
We, the Senate of SUNY Poly Student Government at Utica, do hereby resolve the purpose of this resolution. The purpose of this resolution is to freeze clubs or clubs that have violated CFB policies and procedures. Whereas each club that activates must abide by CFB policies and procedures. Clubs have violated CFB policies and procedures. Article 2, Section 5. I think that's how you read that. Enacted. The following clubs will be frozen for violating CFB policy and procedures, Article 2, Section 5, and beyond frozen by successfully submitting meeting minutes for the months of February and March. Multicultural Student Union, the Wildcat Wrestling Club, Drone Club, Casual Debate Club, Mountain Biking Club, SUNY Poly Flag Football Club, Ski Club, Skateboard Club, Volleyball Club, SUNY Poly, I don't know the acronym, SAC, SUNY Badminton Club, International Student Club. The following clubs will be frozen for violating CFB policy and procedures, Article 2, Section 5, and beyond frozen by successfully submitting meeting minutes for the month of March. Game Design Club, Muslim Student Association, Magic the Gathering Club. Resolution would be finally resolved. The following clubs will be frozen for violating CFB policies and procedures, Article 2, Section 5, Multicultural Student Union, the Wildcat Wrestling Club, Drone Club, Casual Debate Club, Mountain Bike Club, SUNY Poly Flag Football Club, Ski Club, Skateboard Club, Volleyball Club, SUNY Poly SAC, SUNY Badminton Club, International Student Club, Game Design Club, Muslim Student Association, Magic the Gathering Club. I yield.
Do we have any discussion? Senator Chaput.
Sure. SUNY Poly SAC, is that just a point of information for advisors, I guess? Is that a club?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay.
Any further discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, we'll move into voting. All those in favor of the resolution, please raise your hand. All those who oppose? Oh. Can I exit voting? To our advisors, can I exit voting?
Brought back.
All right, point of order. We can talk about this in open forum. I cannot exit voting. I apologize. To our audience member, please hold on to your thought until we re-enter an open forum. I'm going to redo the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those who oppose, and all those who abstain. That passes 6-1-1. Moving on to Resolution 2425-39, Senator Cortez.
Of SUNY Poly, Student Government of Utica, do hereby resolve the purpose of this resolution is to provide the required funds for the class of 2025's class gift. Whereas the class gift committee has met with the SUNY Polytechnic Vice President of Institutional Advancement, and we have reached an agreement on an appropriate gift from the graduating class, and the student body has shown support for the class gift. Therefore, be it enacted, the allocated funds will be put towards the redesign of the designated area as outlined below, and the allocated funds will be used to purchase the relevant items related to the project. Therefore, be it resolved, the designed area will undergo a redesign, and be it further resolved, the student government at Utica will provide a full amount in the line number 390 in the amount of $10,000 in contribution towards the project, and be it resolved, the foundation will cover the remainder of the cost, and be it finally resolved, Class Gift Committee will have fulfilled its purpose to provide a gift from the class of 2025 to support all Poly students. I yield.
Moving into discussion, Senator Fisher.
I would like to add to this as a member of Class Gift Committee. The section we are putting towards the Class Gift would be that area directly out there in front of, I don't know if you would say that the front or back of the Student Center. we are hoping to add 2 benches, 2 picnic tables, and 2 custom bike racks out there. And there will have to be landscaping. That is not, I did not see that in the resolution. The landscaping will be covered by facilities. I would like to add that. I yield.
Our advisor.
I just wanted to make note that under the third section of the resolved, it says that the foundation will cover the remainder of the cost. If the facilities is covering it, which it kind of, I think Senator Fisher is correct, it sounds like facilities will be covering it. We might want to add that in there, that either the foundation or facilities will be covering it. I'm going to yield to Senator Fisher.
Can I make a motion to change in resolved the third bullet point to state, to change it to be it resolved, the foundation and or facilities will cover the remainder of the cost, semicolon and.
Do we have a second? Senator Wood, do we have any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, move into voting on that motion. Oh, sorry, Senator Chaput.
So just for clarity, you've already gotten the go-ahead from facilities that they will cover the extra $1,498 on top of that?
Senator Fisher.
Yes. Okay. I yield.
All right. Any further discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, we'll move into voting on the resolution. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Oh, I'm so sorry. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. That passes unanimously. Sorry, back into discussion on the resolution. Any further discussion on the resolution? Senator Chaput.
Does this amount that's being listed here for the items include tax?
Senator Fisher.
I don't know if it should or needs to, because aren't we a nonprofit, so it wouldn't be taxed. So I yield.
Any further discussion on the resolution? Our treasurer.
Just to kind of build off that a bit, my understanding from what the foundation has offered, if these prices change, right, we don't have enough within our class cliff line to cover all of it, but the foundation will pick it up. They're not, they haven't given us a check for some certain amount. They're just going to cover the difference. I'm going to yield to Senator Fisher.
The change, I change it to be resolved, the foundation and or facilities will cover the remainder of the cost. That when that cover, in case that the prices were increased. I yield to the treasurer to answer. No.
Do we have any further discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, we move into voting. All those in favor of the resolution, please raise your hand. All those who oppose, and all those who abstain. That passes 8-0-0. That concludes our agenda. Do we have any swear-ins for today? Seeing none, we'll move into open forum. Senator Fisher.
Bring back discussion of Senate Resolution number 2425-38.
We have a motion to re-add that discussion. Senator Chaput, we have a second. All those in favor of adding discussion for 2425-38, the resolution. Sorry, I said it and I don't know what I said. All those in favor of adding the discussion of resolution 2425-38, please raise your hand. Did I ask for discussion for it, or did I not? All right, I apologize. All those, any discussion on the resolution to add discussion to resolution 2425-38 during open forum? Senator Velez.
Advisors clarify the issue of immediately voting on this without any questions, because it seems as it's clearly outlined.
I'm going to cut you off. I'm so sorry. I don't really think it's necessary. We're already in discussion of it. Is there any discussion on the motion to add the resolution back to open forum? Seeing none, all those in favor of adding discussion of the resolution back into open forum, please raise your hand. All those who oppose, and all those who abstain. That passes 8-0-0. We are in discussion of resolution 2425-38. Senator Chaput.
So just to clarify with CFB, that all of these clubs have currently not turned in these minutes specifically for the February-March group and specifically for the March group, correct?
One moment.
Our audience member.
Literally had the meeting minutes for March for Game Design Club get approved by Mr. Townsend 2 days ago. We,
Two, Paul. We only have one for March for you guys. Sign. 2 meetings per month.
Can I please ask our audience members to shift until we figure this out? Thank you. Our audience member.
I have the same concern, but for Wildcat Wrestling Club, I know an email was sent out, but the club was frozen from March 5th. It was unfrozen from March 5th to present, and our president said he submitted the meeting times that we had, because we only had 1 or 2 meetings in March, and he said he submitted both of them, so I don't know why it was frozen, because we just got this email yesterday.
CFB.
We have not received a single meeting minute document from Wildcat Wrestling.
Well, we was frozen for a period of time.
Yeah,
and we
but
was
March
just
5th, so you
unfrozen.
had those 3 weeks to hold 2 meetings. You still count for that month of March. March, you're still required to have 2 meetings for, and we haven't received any.
You guys haven't received anything?
No. We had a couple clubs send us documents, but they have to be through Engage under the meeting minutes document. Because we've gotten links, like from Game Design, we got a link to a Google Docs, but that's not the proper format to submit meeting minutes.
said it was fine, to my knowledge.
No, I told him that it was not appropriate for meeting minutes.
I think the problem was
Point of order. We had audience members in line. I'm so sorry.
So we sent the document to, or at least my president sent the document to Max. Max said it was fine, and that was the last I heard of it from my president of Game Design Club. So to my knowledge, that not being fine was never updated to us, and so our last word on anything like that was Max saying it was fine, and then radio silence on email front from CFB. And I can confirm this at least because I got no email saying that stuff like that was not fine. I mean, I understood. I've submitted all my meeting minutes through Engage, but I'm just saying that's what the official CFB correspondence told us at the time.
I have the email, and I'm quoting here from Max Azzarello. You need to fill out the forms on the CFB Engage page. In response to, hey Max, we have the meeting minutes and proof of attendance here, and there's a link to a Google Docs page in response to an email about Game Design Club meeting minutes.
Our audience member.
Hello, I am Melissa Press. I am the club advisor for MSU. They're saying that their meeting minutes were turned in for both February and March, so I just wanted to state that. But I also just want to state for the record that I think it's a travesty for all of these clubs to be frozen because of basically turning in minutes a different way than what you guys would like to have. And I think that it warrants more training and that there should be another way to address this issue, because most of those clubs that you just rattled off have to do with multiculturalness. And if this campus is supposed to be a place of belonging for everybody, if these clubs come together and they start and they're trying their best to do that, to make this campus a place of belonging for everybody, I think it's a travesty for you guys to freeze all those clubs. And that's all I got to say about that.
There was a training handbook along with every meeting we hold.
Our audience member.
To Matt Townsend's point here, so from day one all the way to present day, they are reminded. I will also say that the CFB has done their due diligence in terms of keeping the spreadsheet, and honestly, the best in my 2.5, almost 3 years here in other former CFB boards. So it is our job to uphold that policy within Club Funding Board. The additional emails that CFB's VP sends out, those are not a given. That's also an additional reminder. to our clubs too that failure to submit these will result in being frozen. So that's just extra right there. That's not something that has been done in the past 2.5 years, at least in my time here as their advisor as well. So I want to make a point of that too. We do want to hold our clubs accountable. I get multiple emails from individuals from different clubs as well. I've shown them, I know CFB has shown them how to submit minutes as well.
Is there any further discussion on the resolution?
How come SGU is not held to the same standards that y'all hold the clubs to? I heard that y'all just got done signing something that should have been done and shouldn't be done at the last minute at the bewitching hour for Carnival Day. So it's okay for things and policies and procedures and all of that to be different or to be adjusted for things that y'all want, but y'all holding these clubs to a different standard, and that is not right.
Senator Sput.
I'd like to just comment on the audience member for that one. If we did not pass that, we would have no Apocalypse Week or any of the actual things. And along with that, we are holding up our members of SGU. As if you saw in the original agenda of this meeting, there is a strike going on for how the entire election was held, which I know is separate from the point that was just made. But that is a very serious, 2 strikes is one away from just being completely kicked out of said position. So we are taking these things seriously. However, to the benefit of the students, we want Apocalypse Week to happen.
And all of these clubs are as a benefit to the student too.
Our treasurer.
To clarify the club freezing resolution, when a club is frozen, they are not allowed to spend their funds. The requirements for these clubs to be unfrozen are specified within the resolution. I think, frankly, they are fairly straightforward. Clubs are required to meet a certain amount of times per month, and the reason for doing so is to ensure a club is active. Clubs can receive thousands of dollars a year, which is students' money, and we want to ensure that these clubs are, ensuring that they're having regular meetings, they're providing opportunities for students in order to justify the funding that they receive. I'm going to yield back to our audience member.
Understandably so, but I think that $45,000 that y'all just okayed to be able to use for y'all Apocalypse or Carnival or whatever is a lot more to be worried about than a couple of $1,000s that y'all giving to each club.
Is there any further discussion on the resolution? Senator Sput.
I'd make a motion to table this back one more week just to make sure that all of this meeting minutes are worked out.
With the resolution.
We brought it
Are we
back
now following policy?
We-
Okay. I see. No saying.
Okay, we have a motion to table this for 1 week. Do we have a second? Senator Wood, do we have any discussion on that motion? CFB.
I don't get the reason for tabling it. We already proved it once. All the meetings are compliant within our guidelines, so why are we now having problems with it? We already disagreed that they didn't have solution at the time, so what is the point? We can unfreeze clubs at any time once they are frozen. Once they submit them in, we can have them unfrozen as soon as this afternoon if need be.
Senator Velez.
A lot of time to submit their minutes, especially from February and March. But I would like to ask the audience if we were to allow 1 more week, if that would be enough time to get everything sorted out.
It's in all the training manuals.
Point of order. You do not have the chair right now. You have the chair still. Or not the chair, the floor.
You said that as soon as they turn in these meetings, they're completely unfrozen, correct?
I have to give a message to our advisor on freezing on meetings.
Okay, but as soon as they turn in these meetings, which could be today, in fact, if they turn them in later today, they would be, once that email gets sent out, effectively unfrozen, correct?
Yeah.
Even if this passes?
Yeah, so that's why I don't see the point of rehashing the entire resolution.
Can I entertain a motion to call the question?
Oh.
Senator Sput.
Can I just rescind my motion?
Sure. All right, we are back in discussion of the resolution as a whole. Is there any further discussion on the resolution as a whole? Seeing none, do I need to revote on this? Okay. Moving back into discussion of the resolution, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we will move into voting on the resolution again. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those who oppose, and all those who abstain. That passes 5-3-0. Moving back into open forum, is there anything for open forum?
Hi, everybody.
Our audience member.
Hi, everybody. So I have a petition that I'm going to read off for you. The petition aims to reverse the irresponsible decision of the election committee to remove Grayson Weddle and Kaylee LaSorsa from the 2025 spring executive election. These candidates were removed because they did not properly report that they had seen other candidates' campaign posters being improperly removed. Despite there being no expectation of reporting election concerns, the authors believe that this is an unfair decision because it takes away the voices of hundreds of students as their votes were invalidated. And I'm going to yield to our Treasurer Weddle for more information.
Just to speak on that a bit, I'm sure everyone in the room has a varying level of knowledge of what's been happening. I know previously our Chief Justice mentioned that they cannot clarify much of what is going on due to privacy concerns. I respect that. What I don't respect is taking away the votes of hundreds of students because of actions done by other students and then failing to clarify why those students failing to clarify what exactly the problem is. With regards to our policy, we have standards for elected officials. We also have disciplinary procedures for our elected officials. Those were not followed. There are no expectations outlined within our policies and procedures for candidates to be reporting concerns about the election. No expectation was ever established by this election committee. As I'm guessing most of y'all saw, within the agenda there is a resolution on the table which will be brought up next week with regards to how election committee has been running. It has been running, frankly, very poorly. The resolution outlines more of that, and we'll get to discuss that next week. With regards to the petition, I understand that the election has closed. Regardless, given that 2 candidates were taken off the ballot 2 days before the election ended, I think this is something that should be revisited. I have here 31 election dispute forms filled out by various members of the student body expressing their concerns over the fact that election committee has closed an election after, in literally the midnight hour, removing candidates from said election and not allowing those students to recast their votes. If people have any questions on this, I would be more than happy to weigh in. I'm going to yield to the chair.
Our audience member.
Hello, I was one of the people that filled out one of those forms, and I just wanted clarification because, to my understanding, my vote doesn't count at all for anybody that I voted for president or vice president if they were removed. Does the rest of my ballot count? If I submitted that, will there be a revote in time? Will my vote even count towards anything? I'm just really confused and would like clarification.
Our advisor.
Happy to answer that. Thank you for bringing that up. So if for anyone who voted for the 2 candidates that were removed, those votes for those positions are nullified. Per Robert's rules, they're nullified. Your vote for anything else that you voted for remains. Your overall submission is not nullified, only for the ones that were removed. We cannot offer a revote to the voters who voted for the candidates who were removed because Engage, the way that they run their election to prevent tampering or any interference, separates the voter from their vote. So we cannot say, if Bailey were a student who voted, Bailey voted for X, Y, or Z. We cannot align those two. They keep them very separate by nature. We have no control over that. So we know who voted in the election, and then we know what the number of votes each candidate received are, but we cannot line them up. But your vote still counted in every other way, and that was not nullified. I yield back to the audience member because she did another question.
I apologize.
I don't want to break the rules. So is there a way, does it end up being a full ballot that I get back if I get a revote? Or do I just get the 2 that I circled on the form for president, vice president? I'm wondering, do I just refill out my ballot and it gets recounted? I'm not sure how the process works, that's all.
Our advisor.
So there's not a revote at this time, and because we can't determine who voted for who, we can't allow anyone to revote, if that makes sense, because anyone could say that they voted for whoever, and there's no way for us to validate that.
Okay.
So there's no revote. Your vote for those 2 candidates, if you voted for those 2 candidates, or one or the other,
Yes.
right? would be nullified, but the rest of your vote still stands.
So, is there any way unless if you fill out that form, are you given a chance, or is there no way possible to
What form? I'm sorry.
to voice
The
your opinion
petition,
on
if you
to dispute
the dispute
yeah.
form. At this time, there's not another way. A dispute form of the election would go back to the election committee for consideration, but at this moment, it's not an automatic situation that'll happen.
Okay.
Does that make sense to
Yes.
answer your question? Okay, I yield.
Webb.
My question is, though, you didn't notify the students that their votes didn't count anymore, and you didn't notify anybody in the election that they were taken off the ballot, and you gave them 48 hours notice, not even 44 hours, I think we were told. I don't think that's personally fair to the student body, because we went up to students when we were petitioning, and this kid said, yeah, I haven't voted yet, let me go look. I was like, oh, that's cool, so you didn't even have a choice. People didn't know. I don't think that's fair. They didn't know that Gerson and Kaylee were taken off the ballot. I yelled.
I'm going to go in order. CFB.
We had a undemocratic, borderline fascist takeover election committee to remove candidates from this result with no oversight at all. You kicked the senators off. You took over everything. This is not democratic. We're supposed to lead this body, not by playing dirty politics
Point of
or
order.
seeing the real world.
Point of order.
No.
That's excessive.
I don't care.
Media. Can I entertain a motion to remove Matthew Townsend from the meeting? No? Okay, I apologize. I take it back.
Can I continue?
Media.
I would like to recommend that the advisors or the executive board, or I guess the Chief Justice, because you were the one who released that statement, to put your statement in an email and send it out to the student body. Because to be quite honest, the student body does not come. I know that the meeting is that's when you make the formal announcement to the student body, but for transparency reasons, I would like for this to be sent in your hint to my email, and I appeal to your Chief Justice.
I would also like to briefly mention, so first of all, everyone who was removed through proper process. This wasn't a fascist decision, as per the words. As mentioned in the earlier statement, we not only consulted amongst ourselves and with several senators, we also consulted with SUNY Poly administrators, lawyers, and more people. This is a decision that was made in conjunction with extremely high up people at the school. I yield.
Our treasurer, I apologize.
I would also, with regards to media's request for the Chief Justice to formally notify the students, I would also like to formally request that the Chief Justice review policy, because it is my understanding that they do not have an understanding of the policy. The policies that were cited to Kaylee and I when we were removed from the election deal with, as mentioned, elected officials. As I previously stated, we have a process for disciplining elected officials if they are not upholding the policies and procedures or their contracts. To quote these sections that were given to me, at all times, members of the student government at Utica, which refers to the elected officers of the student government at Utica per context given by the beginning of Article 20, this is conduct, appearance, and standards, are expected to uphold the highest standards of integrity and professionalism. The student body puts their trust in the student government at Utica to represent them, and as such is to be considered a positive role model in these regards. That's from our policies and procedures. With regards to our Constitution, Section 5, all elected officials, again, all elected officials are expected to uphold the governing documents and the Student Code of Conduct at all times. With regards to candidacy, all candidates are required to sign a form that makes certain attestations, right? It states that you have a certain GPA. It states that you've been at SUNY Poly for a certain amount of time. It says nothing with regards to expectations for candidates to report election concerns. I yield.
Our Res Life representative.
Hello, everyone. I usually don't speak on these things a lot, but I've been in student government for now 5 years. Jen George could attest to this. This is my 5th year here being college council rep. This is the first time that, in all honesty, I'm happy with the amount of just like enthusiasm that people had within the election. People were encouraged to vote. People were encouraged to run. People that you didn't think would run actually did. And I thought it was a great idea. Now, Within regards to the policy, I don't know them too well because I'm not really into that right now. But regardless of whatever happened and whatever took place, there were consequences for the actions that were taking place. I noticed them, I saw them, I was also involved with this whole thing. I didn't know that this would be the outcome, but in all honesty, within the policies that was made by the VP that was sent out within an email that highlighted what you can and cannot do in terms of presenting yourself as a candidate, in terms of using social media and posters and what not to do with the print shop, was all followed. So I don't understand why, or whoever it was decided it was a good idea to start tampering with posters in the first place. This all should have been prevented, and this is all open to anyone to do. Everyone had the right to use posters. Everyone had the right to use social media. Just because one person that did it doesn't mean that you have to use it as a backlash. I yield.
Our Chief Justice.
I would also like to briefly comment on our treasurer's comment. So when they signed the election packet, they agreed to, quote, adhere to all laws outlined in the SGU bylaws and Constitution. Directly below that, it also states, failure to adhere to any of the above guidelines, including what I just mentioned, is subject to removal from the election pending majority vote from the election committee. A majority vote was reached. I yield.
Our audience member. Apologies, our audience member to the left of you.
Grayson, you don't get special privilege just because you were elected. You don't get special privilege of getting a strike for sitting from 5 feet away from the tabling center handing out posters to vote for you just because you're elected. You think you get special privilege because you're elected, but you don't. You are equal to me. You are equal to Noah. You are equal to Declan. You are equal to anyone else who ran to this election. You don't get special privilege just because you're currently in a position of power. And think about this also. It should not be a goal of yours to try and get, like, using your power to benefit yourself. Use the privilege of representing the students here instead. And all you're doing is representing your own interests. How many of this have been lies? I've been told, I keep out here, that when you were putting out the petition saying why you got canceled for this, that you weren't even being honest about it. I've had students here saying that you were mentioning this when this was a private matter. You've done so many things on this e-board that have been against the students, like the best will, the will of the students and against your best interests because it benefits you. And this is just another one of them. The election's been called. If you want to go back and say, go make this one next semester. If you can't run next semester, because you can't run for president again next semester, run for, like, vice treasurer. Run for a senator position. Run for anything else. I didn't make it when I got a badge assignment. You know what I did? Instead of trying to deposit results or even pretending at the fact that Ross was on there as a badge of senator, despite the fact that he even have his bachelor's degree, you know what I did instead? I said, okay, I'm going to run instead for another elected position or run next semester. I didn't start trying to overturn election results because I didn't win.
Point of information, I am actually at this school as a graduate. I am in the BSMS program, and as per BSM program, I am a graduate. I yield.
Our audience member.
So, as Avi, I am similar to Avi, how I've been in here in SGU for 4 years. This is the first time that we've had a contested election. This is the first time in a while for me that I've seen this much enthusiasm in student government. My big issue with this is we have a lot of competing mindsets, competing mentalities, like the only word that I have ever seen, not that I've ever seen, but the only word that I've been able to come up with for this process has been everyone is competing against one another to try and say they're right, to try and say that they are the bigger person. This is not what SGU should be about. This should not be what we are doing. We should not be fighting one another. We should not be sitting here trying to, like, just, it feels like there's too much hostility, too much just everything going on, and it's just, I think we're losing track of our mission, of our Constitution, which is serve the students of SUNY Poly in a fair and unbiased manner. I feel like both sides, both election committee and the people that have been removed, have had bias in some way, shape, or form. Even if they don't want to say it, there is implicit bias in our lives. I have my own biases, but we try our best to break those biases when we are working. So I think my main statement just with trying to say this is we need to reassess, and we need to really fully go back to that mission statement and fully make sure that we are representing the student's best interest. The student is who is paying us. They are what is funding everything that we are doing. So every single thing we should be doing shouldn't be trying to prove that we're right. Shouldn't be trying to, sorry, I have things written and I'm just trying to hit on all of them. It just shouldn't be all that. And I guess to just finish off real fast, something that I want to understand is, were these candidates removed from the ballot? Were you able to still vote for these candidates after they had been removed internally? I'm going to yield for an answer, and then I want to take it back. So when they were removed, it wasn't just like today they got removed. They were removed, like, I don't remember what day it was, Tuesday. From Tuesday to Thursday, there was still people that could vote. Were they still on that ballot for vote? Okay. Then that is all. I will yield.
I'm going to yield to our advisor.
I just wanted to quickly respond to Rachel's question that we never were able to answer before about if we would be able to send out a campus announcement with the statement that was read earlier today and potentially include confirmation that the rest of the votes of a person would still count. And if that's the will of the Senate, we are happy to do that. It was our intention to come here first so that we had the ability to talk to you. If you think that that was the wrong order, I apologize. We thought it would be best to start here and then take it to the broader population if that was the request of the Senate. I don't think election committee is opposed. Anyone who's on election committee, we would be happy to. We will not include names. We will not include what happened, but what was read earlier could be sent out. And additionally, I think it's really important to remember that just because a policy or procedure doesn't say that you can't do something or that you should do something, doesn't mean that that expectation is not there. You are a 501c3 not-for-profit organization on record with the federal government. I don't know if you truly understand the power and the responsibility that comes with that. If you think of what a not-for-profit is, you can think of lots of agencies, right? You think about people who are giving their time to others and charities and things like that. If their elections were tampered with, it would be a problem. Our election was tampered with, and we responded in the way that was appropriate to address the situation. And I promise you, we did not come to this decision lightly. Not one person on that election committee wanted this to be the outcome. This was never the desire. This was never what anybody wanted, but we had to act in a fair and unbiased manner in order to preserve the integrity of the rest of the election. And I really feel like if the roles were reversed and it was happening to a different candidate, they would want that to happen as well for them. And we did the very best we could, and it took us a long time to deliberate. It was not a quick decision. It was not something that anyone took lightly. It was a very serious situation that took hours and hours and hours of deliberation. And we did the very best that we could, and we followed the ethic code, even though it didn't state it in your policies and procedures. It was the right thing to do to keep the integrity of the election. I yield.
I'm here to Webb.
I would just like to say that election committee did not hold decorum, or however the word is. They didn't have the right amount of people on their committee. I'm going to read you the policy, or whatever it is, Article 1. It's in the stuff. It says, Article 1, there shall exist 6 members of the SGU election committee. The student government at Utica vice president will be the chair of the SGU election committee. The president pro temp of the Senate will co-chair the election committee, and the student government at Utica secretary will serve as the clerk of the election committee. The remaining 3 members shall consist of director of diversity, equity and inclusion, director of public relations, and the student government at Utica advisor. I would like to say, 1, I know 2 of those candidates could not be there because they are also running in the election, so I understand that. Then there was a candidate who has run and won that was on the election and then was taken off. There was someone who was wrongfully taken off. They only had 2 students voting and 2 advisors voting when it says 1 advisor. I don't think that's fair. They're not following policy. I yield.
I'm going to yield to our audience member.
Point of order, you're supposed to go in turn with regards to...
I believe I was. I thought our audience member was next. Oh, I apologize. I'm yield to our treasurer.
Grayson was first, yeah.
Okay, I
Thanks,
apologize.
Devin. So I have a lot to respond to. First, to our Res Life representative, with regards to the email that was sent out about election campaigning, it made no mention of expectations for reporting for election candidates. It stated that all advertising must be professional and should not exhibit any inappropriate, crude, and offensive language, that sort of thing. It did not establish expectations for bringing forth concerns. With regards to our Chief Justice, the interest form does indeed state that you must uphold the SGU policies and procedures as well as the Constitution. However, you have to uphold the policies that apply to you. There are expectations for senators. Senators are supposed to serve on 3 committees. If I agree to uphold the policies and procedures, that does not make me a senator. It does not make me an elected official. It makes me a candidate agreeing to this SGU policies and procedures. With regards to what our audience member said, there was a lot to unpack there. I believe I've always done my best to serve the students. The reason I circled and helped with this petition is because I believe the students deserve their vote. If the students want to support a candidate, they should have the right to do so. If the students do not want to support a candidate, they should also have that right. If the election were to conclude today and I had not been removed from the ballot and I had lost, that would be that. I would hopefully still be involved in student government in some capacity the following academic year, but with all due respect, I am capable of losing an election and accepting that and moving on. What I am not capable of doing is accepting the fact that 2 students and 2 staff members on what was supposed to be a 5-student committee removed 2 candidates in the last 2 days of an election, gave no notice to anyone else, and has been pretty much as not transparent as you possibly could in this regard. I'm going to yield back to our Chief Justice.
I would once again like to reiterate that almost all of the information we are dealing with is protected by FERPA. We, as student government, cannot decide to just skirt around federal regulations. Unfortunately, that is just not an option. I would also like to heavily emphasize that, first of all, more senators were brought on, and the vote was retaken, and it was once again done through unanimous consent. I would also like to reiterate that many administrators were consulted. There are a lot of assumptions being brought to the table here for why they may or may not have been removed, and I believe that it is legally impossible for us to respond and give the exact reasons as to why these people were removed. However, we had several students, 4 students, 2 staff members on the official committee, as well as we consulted with lawyers and administrators throughout this entire decision process. This was not taken lightly. This was not, we can't just skirt federal policy. I yield.
Our audience member.
Hi. I'm speaking as an audience member and as one of the candidates in the race. Unfortunately, I did not win, but it was a good race anyways. I feel like a lot of you all are missing the point. Whether or not I understand the election committee may have done a lot of work in ensuring that making their decisions, correct? I feel like the point, though, is that many students' votes were nullified here, and they did not have the chance to recast their vote. There may have been a different outcome to the election had they had the ability to recast their votes, or something was done about it. But from what I'm understanding, there was not much transparency to this decision until very, very recently. Whether or not the candidates that were disqualified should be disqualified is up. I'm not going to debate. What I will debate, though, is the fact that I do feel the student body should be able to vote for who they want and not have a voice in their decision. I firmly believe that many students' voices have gone unheard because of this decision, and I believe that whether or not these candidates remain disqualified, which I'm sure they might, there should be some recourse to this, and the election should not just immediately close 2 days with 2 days' notice. Thank you.
Senator Fisher.
Election, anything like that. All I'm going to say is, at the end of this meeting, everyone is becoming very, very hostile to each other. This is very, very unprofessional and not like an SGU member. So I will kindly please tell people to lower your voices and speak professionally, because we are all, technically, anyone who's paid their student activities fee is an SGU member. So technically, we are all co-workers. So we should work as a team, not individuals. I yield.
Our treasurer.
With regards to our Chief Justice's comment that many administrators were involved, I was told directly by the Vice President of Student Affairs that most of the administrators that I reached out to with regards to this decision do not oversee or intervene in SGU's internal governance processes. They do not aid, they do not have a role in determining SGU bylaws, election outcomes, or committee decisions. I understand you may have consulted with them. However, I don't think in this regard that really has an impact. You said that there were 5 students, I believe. My understanding is there are 3 students on election committee right now, and 1 was only brought on after the decision was made. Had he voted against it, it would not have overturned the decision because it needs to be a majority decision. He was not allowed to be in the room when those discussions were initially had, and that is extremely problematic. I yield.
Our audience member.
I want everyone here to also think about something. How many of you, generally think, since we brought up bias before, think deeply. How many of you are friends of Grayson? How many of you are, there's acquaintances, but you consider yourself close with Grayson? A lot of us have been working on SGU for a long time and have been engaging with Grayson for the last academic year. This forms bias. Whether negative or positive, it still forms bias towards him. How many of you would have signed that petition to overturn the election if it happened to Noah? How many of you would have signed it if it happened to me? That's
point of
because
order.
I'll be honest, I don't feel like that's fully the case, or at least of how I've seen student government act and run and behave themselves this last academic year. I have seen a lot of infighting, I've seen a lot of bullying, I have seen a lot of strong-arming in SGU that has been done because people are not taking SGU as they are. As an SGU member, you should not be like friends with your SGU members. You should be co-workers. The reason why is offense bias. As soon as you form that friendship, it causes the expectation of, I'm going to do what I need to do to help my friends. Many of us want and like to think that we could do stuff against our friends, but we can't. And that's what I'm saying now. Almost everyone who signed a petition, to my knowledge, not at least like the election one seeing, is friends. In fact, I've had people start harassing me when I started running in government because I was running against Grayson because they were friends with Grayson. I'm not putting this in Grayson because I'm pretty sure he didn't tell me to do that, so I'm just saying. But the point is, there is bias here. These bias are trying to get this to be changed. You might think you're excused because you think this is fair. No. Deep down, think about it. Just think. Like, say Grayson won and was not moved off. But then I was moved off, and if I got put on, I would win or something like that. Would you guys then
CFB.
Regarding election committee, I have a senator who wishes to be anonymous. They were told they were removed from the committee. How are we sure that these students were actually on this committee when the decision was told, when various senators were removed from said committee and were not allowed to attend said meetings?
Media.
Does election committee take minutes, or is it a closed meeting?
Notes were conducted, but we can't share them. Yes, we do have minutes, though. I yield.
Have any meetings on the committee. So they were told they'd be on the committee and then removed from said committee during the meeting, and then and such. Yep.
Yep, you have the floor.
So I can't share like the details of the people, right? Like I can't share individual information because we're bound by FERPA. But I will share a little bit about the process. First round of election committee had Asa, Lucas, John, Forrest, Brielle. Is that everybody? And the two of us were there because we had helped with the timeline. After the first meeting, Forrest and Brielle decided to run for the election, so they were removed. Asa was nope, you were already on. Sorry. Preston was added at that point. Sorry, I don't want to pull up our whole document because it is private, so I'm hesitant to have it up in front of me. A senator was added to try to replace that. And I would like to also mention that our policy does not articulate who is added in place of the people who are removed or are ineligible to serve in that role. So the secretary is not allowed to serve in the role, and she had decided to run, so she wasn't a candidate. We don't have a DEI rep. We've talked about that already. So the positions that are outlined to be in this committee could not be filled. So we stretched our policy to be able to still have a full committee. As people had, I don't want to say a role, there are situations that evolved, they were taken out. So Preston was added as a member at one point. Certain people had to be removed at certain points. We tried to replace them. And then when we were replacing those positions with people that weren't really identified as the people who should be replacing and serving on the committee, all of this erupted. So then it's, do you bring them in the middle of a situation when everything is going and where there's an investigation ongoing? It was really hard, and our policies don't really articulate how to fulfill that differently. So I truly think we did the best that we could. And there were 5 voting members who all had a vote in this. And that did not count a second advisor. That was 4 students and an advisor who had the final vote on whether or not the candidate should be removed. And I want to reiterate, this was not taken lightly. Although, yes, Grayson's email from the Vice President for Student Affairs says that they do not meddle in the ongoings of student government, we did our due diligence to make sure that every I was dotted, every T was crossed, that this had to be the outcome. There was no way around it. There was no blurriness. There was no gray area. For people who do this every day and are used to conducting investigations and looking at all of the details and all of the supplemental information, we worked with them to really make sure that we were doing the right thing. I also want to reiterate, no one wanted this to happen. We were not seeking this. This was brought to us, and we had to act. And so we did. I yield.
Our vice treasurer.
I don't have a mic, so I'll just kind of yell. I would just like to say that this all comes down to the voice of the students, right? And I think that's what we're kind of forgetting is that if any member that's trying to be elected, anyone running in the election, violates any form of the democratic process, that is effectively silencing student voices. Whether we agree or disagree on the evidence that we can't look at part of it because of FERPA and all that, that's a whole separate issue. The main core of it is the students' voices, and by effectively, as it was saying, removing posters, that is silencing voices. People may not vote how they voted if they knew people were acting how they were acting. If people are being dishonest and all those other things, you will not vote for them more likely than not. And whether or not these candidates did that, that's the evidence part. But again, it's the students' voices, and by acting in this unfaithful manner, you are effectively silencing, potentially hundreds of students.
Our audience member. I'm gonna call to our advisor for that.
So it protects every student. When you're in high school, your parents are protected and they are allowed to have access to all of your information. They can talk to teachers and the principal and have access to everything. When you get to college, the information that pertains to you is yours. And so other people don't have access to that unless it's for an educational purpose or a specific reason to have access to it. We can't share information on your behalf in almost any situation. If you're going through a student conduct, we can't tell your parents, we can't tell your teachers, we can't tell anybody. We can't reveal your grades if someone calls and asks about your grades. We can't reveal really any part of your educational record to anyone without your permission. So these are private investigations that have happened that we don't have the right to share that information on behalf of you. In no way is the election committee trying to not be transparent. We are trying to be respectful. We are trying to protect people. We are not trying to publicly embarrass or humiliate anybody. Everyone makes mistakes. We understand that, and we're trying to be respectful of that and not have that be public. We can work through mistakes and we can get on the other side of them, but we cannot share your information publicly, which is why we didn't take this to like a mass email saying Grayson and Kaylee were removed from the election. We would never do that. That's not our mission here. If you want us to send that email with our statement, we're certainly happy to, and it won't have anybody's names. I yield.
It's for Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, just to let you know.
I have somebody else's mic right now because that one died. So when it comes to the situation, it's just to of anyone involved in the situation is what I get? Okay, so it's just transparency as well. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Where do I put this mic?
All I'm going to say is I'm not currently feeling the greatest right now because I just almost passed out. I got felt like I need the pass. I almost passed out. All I'm going to say is it is currently 2:33, and we are all students, which does come before SGU. I would really ask that this meeting please end soon so that we can go, so people who have class at 2 p.m. can go to their classes. No, I don't have class. I did the essay. I'm just saying, and just to restate, we need to be more professional to each other, please. I yield.
With regards to the petition, to clarify the petition a little bit, the petition is to overturn election committee's decision with regards to removal from the ballot. The petition was created before the election results were announced. The petition is not to overturn the results of the election. The petition is to reverse election committee's decision. The reason I was given for why I was removed from the election was that I had knowledge that posters were being taken down, and I was apparently allowing it to happen by not being forthright with election committee and not actively approaching election committee with regards to that. If you believe that's a fair reason, that's your prerogative. No expectation was ever set, and something that our advisors have referenced previously is it's fairly unfair to hold people to expectations that you communicate to them in no way whatsoever. It was referenced that we're a 501c3 corporation, right, and we want to ensure fair elections. Regardless of whether or not I am put back on the ballot, I think it is extremely unfair for any student that has voted for me in the past 12 days, excluding the past 2, is not allowed to recast their vote. If they want to vote for a candidate that is other than the candidate that was removed, myself, I think they should have the right to do so, and if we're talking about silencing the voices of students, that extremely feels like the silencing the voices of students. With regards to reopening the election, this is possible. We can call for a revote. That is a decision made by election committee. With regards to overall overturning the results of the election, my understanding is that's also left up to election committee and then later brought to the Constitutional Court with approval. I'm going to yield to our esports representative.
So I understand the concern in that way and the feeling of not having your voice heard, but we resort back to Robert's rules. When our policies don't indicate what happens in a situation, we always defer to Robert's rules, and Robert's rules indicates that the vote for that specific candidate, if they are removed, is nullified. So that wasn't a decision that was ours to make. That's a governing body's regulations and guidelines that they present to us. So that's what we have to follow. I yield.
So, I'm about to say, I'll be fully honest, I probably should not say this because this is probably going to be my biggest reputational, political, and probably also relationship suicide I've ever committed. But I'm going to do this because I'm going to be honest about stuff.
Okay.
A lot of the concerns, I don't care, I know this is probably going to affect me, and I'm not sure what the true effects is going to be, but a lot of the concerns that were against the candidates that got removed were by students. For some reason, these students, a couple of them, at least I got 6 of the complaints against our candidates was for some reason given to me. I cannot answer why they gave it to me.
Okay.
I cannot fully think, and then I took those complaints and I brought them to our advisors, I brought them to Lucas, I brought them to Benjamin Young, and I brought them to John. If you think about that, that is students who are the ones who came up with these complaints. Students who had no horse in this race were the ones who came up and said, I have concerns about the actions of Grayson, of Kayla, and then 2 others who were not cited. And then when I got those, I brought up. So if you think about that, these aren't the advisors or Lucas or anyone on election committee being like, damn, I don't like these guys, I'm going to just come up with BS reasons to strike. No, these are students who came up, took their time, took risks of possible retaliation to come up and say, I have concerns about this election, I saw his behavior, it seems unfair, it seems dangerous, and it seems undemocratic. And they were brave. They came up and they talked. So the student's voice was that these actions were concerns. Therefore, you cannot say it's not a student's voice to have this consequence. It might be, yes, some students' voices were silenced, but other students said those things. This was the will of multiple, well, it wasn't the will, I don't think anyone, I know when I brought these songs up, it wasn't my goal or my will to have Mason get removed. I, as situation where none of them had the will of getting racing kicked off either. They were just doing it because they wanted to express their voices, because they are students here and this
Did we?
impacts them. I yield.
What is it?
So we did just lose quorum, so our meeting must.
Yeah, we did.
We just lost quorum. We lost quorum, so the meeting is over. We lost quorum.
Pause. Does our meeting have to conclude as we have lost quorum?
Yes, we lost.
Actually, I do remember reviewing Robert's rules.
Yeah, 'cause we
one
did this
time.
in
I'm pretty
the
sure
fall.
if we lose quorum, like once the meeting is opened, that's when we need quorum. But losing quorum technically doesn't change anything. We could do. I'll double check that, but I am pretty sure that losing quorum doesn't change. If you guys would like to adjourn, you still can. I'm not stopping.
I think the adjournment is just automatic at that point. I think that's my understanding. Is there anything else for open forum?
Awesome, yeah.
Our audience member.
So it was brought to my notice that my club was going to be frozen today, and because of meeting minutes that I can't provide. So my club was unfrozen March 5th, and the meeting minutes that are being asked for are meeting minutes from February and March, but we didn't have meetings until March 30th because I had to sort out some stuff with my members between the 5th to the 30th. And I explained that to Max, who emailed me, and I'm still wondering why I'm still being frozen. If you can explain that to me, please.
Senator Sputt.
Can I just ask what club you're in?
The Wildcat Wrestling Club.
Wrestling club. All right. And
Senator Sputt.
can I just continue asking a couple questions for clarity?
Go ahead.
All right. So you said that you were, and I see on here that it is indeed saying February and March. Can you just tell me how long your club was frozen for up until March 5th?
So we were basically frozen for basically almost the whole semester until up to that point.
All right. And then continuing on from that, did you have any meetings going past March 5th, or was it strictly like text and stuff that you were talking with your club members?
So after we started having meetings March 30th. So since then we've been meeting every Sunday off campus from 10:30 to 12.
So just to confirm, you had one meeting in March.
Yes.
And did you turn in that meeting at the very least?
I put them on Engage.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not a representative of CFB or anything. I would just like to know more information, have it on record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brief point of order. According to the actual Roberts rules, it's a little bit, we can't vote on something, but we can continue a meeting. So like, I do think people have a lot of questions and concerns, so I really want to make sure we continue any important, relevant conversation. Though I do need to leave at like 2:55.
Just point of information, who was first? Was it Webb or our treasurer? Treasurer? All right. Treasurer Weddle.
Just for the sake of getting it on the record, can I have a verbal commitment from the Chief Justice that they're going to review this petition and, provided all the signatures or a sufficient amount of the signatures are valid, create a resolution for it?
Absolutely. If it is valid, I should specify. Like, I will review it as impartially as I can without the presence of.
Can I just point of order real quick? I don't know if, does your policy, I'd have to look, does it require, is this an appeal for the election have to go to the election committee, or it doesn't come to the Senate? Am I correct? What are you requesting, I guess? What are you submitting and what are you requesting? Is it just a general petition or a petition to the I'm sorry, or is it the petition to appeal the election?
Point of clarification. The petition is to overturn the decision of election committee to remove those candidates from the ballot, so it doesn't. It's sticky in the sense that it concerns the election, but it refers to a general decision taken by a committee. So in that regard, it doesn't fall under, from my reading, of the election dispute policy. Alongside that, we have also been in anticipation soliciting election dispute forms based off of the decisions made by election committee. Those would go straight to election committee. The petition itself is separate. I'm going to yield to our Chief Justice.
I'm also going to add on top of that, so even though you could make the claim that they're tangentially similar, technically, according to our policies and procedures, I believe, a petition is defined as a collection of signatures from the students for any reason. So for that reason, I think this is perfectly acceptable because it is, in fact, a reason, and it is any reason. I yield.
Webb.
I guess my next thing is that if this petition was able to move forward, or just anything in general, if we could have more transparency with election committee, unless obviously if it includes FERPA, if we could know the members or something so we can make sure that they are following the policies. I get that, I understand, I guess your one meeting, you had to talk about FERPA, so I guess you couldn't include the voting numbers, the people that were in there. I just feel that this the non-transparency is insane. I really would appreciate if we could have more transparency from going further. I yield.
Lucas, can I yield the chair to you for 1 minute to make a remark and then ask for it back?
I accept the chair.
Okay.
Our president.
So at one point, I was on election committee. I had an election concern. I did email the election committee. I had to verify with our elections chair, whose contract I have not signed, but our elections chair, that who was on election committee. So I sent an email, and we met the next day briefly about it. And if I'm not mistaken, what I remember what I was told is our advisors on the election committee, I'm looking directly at you, but I'm kind of saying it to the room. Our advisors didn't know the 2 new members that were added to the election committee at the time until I emailed them, which I just thought was a little funky. Just erring to the side of transparency to everyone, even within the committee. It just felt a little done poorly, but I
yield the chair back to our president.
I accept the chair. Let me see. Yeah, our advisor.
I actually just had a question. So just for clarification purposes, there's 2 different actions going on. One is contesting the results of the election. One is an election dispute, if I'm correct. So the dispute of the election or the petition, I'm sorry. So there's an election contest, and then there's a petition to revoke the decision made by the election committee. I just want, and I know that you're listed as an author, so I'm going to yield to you for clarification.
I'm actually going to yield to the treasurer because he's going to say this better than I can.
So with regards to the wording in the petition, it says the petition aims to reverse the irresponsible decision of election committee to remove Grayson Weddle and Kaylee LaSorsa from the 2025 spring executive election. That's the purpose of the petition. The election dispute forms are separate. I'm going to yield to our advisor.
I just question about it. So the petition, you want the purpose to be redoing the election with the 2 candidates that were removed included. I'll yield back to the treasurer.
No, the petition is just to reverse the decision to remove them off the ballot. It's to return them to the ballot. The petition was created before the election closed. The election closed today, which is just sort of poor timing because the first time this petition could be read was today, and the election also closed today, but the petition was created before that. The petition just aims to reverse the decision to remove those candidates off the ballot. The actual election dispute forms just dispute the overall closing of the election, and I would hope that there would be some common sense in that if this petition were to be accepted, you would consequently, either would want to file another election dispute form given that candidates were taken off the ballot for 2 days and that limits the amount of people who can vote for them, or just to redo the whole thing given the general messiness of the situation. I yield.
Do we have any further discussion? Our audience member.
No one else thinks that kind of sounds like we called it's like overturning the results of the election because no offense, but that basically just leaves overturn the I want to overturn the election because we already called the election. Therefore, adding in new votes to the election is overturning the results of the election. This petition is just basically asking overturn the result. Because if you say quickly under this decision and you win, that overturns the results of the election. Does that make sense? If you don't win, it doesn't overturn anything. Or Kayla didn't win, it doesn't overturn anything. But if Kayla or you win with the votes back in,
Point of information, her name is Kaylee.
it kind of overturns the election, if that makes sense, because now you're saying, oh, Noah, you no longer won. Now it's this person who won. Does that make sense?
Senator Sput.
Okay, I wanted to ask a couple clarifying questions. First of all, election committee, I'm pretty sure you can answer this one. What was the date set for the submission deadline for election dispute form? Because that is something for an election dispute form. It states specifically this form must be submitted by the date line set by the election committee. So was there a date given for this dispute form?
That's just within our policies. We don't announce it. Is that what you're saying? Like we don't.
Oh, I'm asking what was the date for this dispute form? Can you answer that?
That it was turned in, or how long they have to fill one out?
So let me just read out what it says on the election dispute form. It says this form must be submitted by the deadline set by the election committee. I'm wondering what that deadline was that it could be submitted by.
April 29th.
April 29th? Next week, okay.
Next week. Well, a week and a half. Yeah. Like
and then,
10 days.
I don't know, do you have the policies in front of you right now? Can you just tell me how much time needs to take place for a petition for an election contestation? Because I know that is in here. If you know that, then.
Yes, so with regards to that, should a candidate submit an election dispute, the election committee must meet within 1 week after receiving the dispute notification. So with regards to all of these, I would assume that gives you until next Thursday's meeting. And then there's 14 days to provide a hearing after the date they were submitted. So there would have to be a hearing within 2 weeks for all of these individuals.
It will likely be sped up to try to finish before the end of the semester.
I yield back to Bruce.
Continuing on with that, it is hard set in our policies that we need 2 weeks of training time for candidates. That is one of the hard set things for this election, meaning that if this dispute form and everything went through and everything got recalled, we wouldn't be able to do anything anyways and would have to call a special election beginning of next semester. Is that correct? I yield.
I believe we would likely proceed as normal with the people who were announced, and then if there was a shift after that, if we wanted to return it, if we had run out of time, like at the end of the semester and needed to reopen or redo another election, that would happen in the beginning of next semester. I yield, sorry.
Our point of information, was it our audience member or our treasurer first?
Probably our audience member.
All right, our audience member.
I have a question about that specifically, where the timeline just didn't make sense to all sitting down with both the petition being submitted for review. I was just wondering about the timeline. From somebody who is involved in SGU, it seems to be an issue there where you don't have a confirmed president and most of your e-board by the time the beginning of next semester. I yield.
Okay. Our treasurer.
So to clarify that, right, we do need a 2-week training period. We are able to call special sessions of the Senate, right, in which executives could be sworn in. Were the election to be extended, right, people could be sworn in. My understanding is after the end of the semester. It's a little sticky in that regard, but we would absolutely want a full e-board over the summer. A lot of things do happen over the summer. It might not appear like it, but especially with regards to org heads and all that. I'm going to yield to Webb.
I just want to say the timeline for this. They were notified Tuesday. That petition was then made that night. And we had 48 hours, however you want to call it, to get all the signatures. I yield to the floor.
Our advisor.
I wish that there was the rest of the group here to say this, but I think it's really important for anyone who's going to be voting on this, and if it comes to the table in a resolution form or however it's presented going forward, I'll say it there as well. I think the ethics of the people on the election committee are being questioned, when in reality it's the ethics of the people who took action and did not take action and impeded the election in the way that they did. That's what took the student voices, and that's what really was trying to discredit the election. So I think we're pointing fingers at the election committee, and you have every right to question the decisions and understand the process. But I do think we need to look at what we're actually fighting for. I yield.
Our treasurer.
And then back to me if you don't mind.
Was it? Oh, my apologies.
All right, we bounced this
Senator
around a
Chaput.
little bit. So just to clarify on a couple of points, so you wanted the information on the timeline for the petition, correct? You just got that. Was that? And did you want a timeline for just the general election as well?
I was interested in the timeline for petition, this whole process, and I was also curious about the timeline for if the petition was accepted for the special election, when that would take place. I understand it's really early. Early to tell. I was just wondering perspective. Yields to the floor.
Our treasurer.
Oh, sorry. Just back first.
Okay, so in the instance of what has happened, whoever was just elected, that was announced today, they are the elected officials going forward until all of this stuff goes through. So that means that as of after training, when they get sworn in, if nothing has happened until then, they will be the going forward president and vice president, and every other position is fine because that's not in discussion. Along with that, I'm sure the treasurer could answer a little bit more on the specifics on how the dispute forms and that stuff would work in terms of changing that generally around.
That does answer my questions.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
Our treasurer.
Yeah, so with regards to dispute forms, the process is it gets submitted to election committee. Election committee has a hearing. With majority approval, or vote rather, of election committee, it would then convene a constitutional court. That's with regards to the actual election results. With regards to reopening the election, my understanding is we don't have policy in that respect. That's probably something that we'd want to figure out. It's possible that, I mean, presumably if we're disputing the results of the election, that could also fall through that process. Echoing onto what our advisors said, there has been a fair amount of finger pointing at election committee, and I don't think it should necessarily be, it shouldn't be taken as the fault of election committee. There is, of course, resolution 2425-36, which we'll look at next week, but I also think it's important to keep in mind that intent does matter, right, with regards to action and inaction, particularly in regards to inaction. Intent does matter. If there is willful intent to do something, that's a lot more serious than if there is just inaction, broadly speaking. And I find it, from a personal perspective, very challenging to punish someone for being negligent for an expectation that was never communicated when they were doing so not in a malicious fashion, but simply moving about life. I'm going to yield back to the floor.
Senator Chaput.
Just to add further clarification on how the election thingy works, just looking at the policy here, what would happen is the constitutional court would be made and they would call on a special election if they need be. I yield.
Our audience member.
Oh, I wasn't trying to say, it was just, I was given the responsibility by Webb to hold on to this for the rest of the meeting, because I was going to be off the rest of the meeting. Since I can't really hold on to that, that's what I'm doing awful with names right now. Erica. Not Erica. I meant Wildcat Media. Rachel. That's what Rachel asked me to do, so just that way it's easier, so that way I don't have to reach up to the table. So.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none and Senator Chaput.
No. Can I motion to adjourn?
Actually, I was going to say, seeing as we don't have quorum, I don't think we can vote on anything, so I think we're just adjourned at 3 o'clock.
You don't need to make a motion for it.
I don't think so. We don't have anyone.
Well, you don't vote, but you just make the motion. Oh, no motions are allowed? Okay.
So we're adjourned at 3.